I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer urged fellow senators to support the Honoring Our Pact Act on the Senate floor Wednesday. The bipartisan legislation aims to help veterans exposed to toxic substances get access to health care. Schumer said that the Honoring Our Pact Act lets veterans know, quote, "Yes, we will make sure you can live healthy and dignified lives." Listen in for more of the New York Democrats' full remarks.
Productive week here in the Senate. I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, we continue a productive week here on the Senate floor. Today, the Senate will take another step closer to passing the largest veterans health care bill in decades, honoring our PACT Act. In a few moments, the Senate will vote to adopt the substitute amendment and then immediately vote on cloture on the bill, bringing us to the brink of passing this long-sought piece of legislation. Frankly, the Senate should come to an agreement to finish the PACT Act work ASAP. We should pass this bill as soon as we can and finally tell our veterans that the long wait for their well-earned benefits is over. Let me say it again, there's no reason not to finish the PACT Act ASAP. Our nation's veterans have waited long enough for this bill. Since 9/11, nearly 3.5 million veterans have been exposed to toxic burn pits in the line of duty. Scores of Americans went off to serve our country in perfect health, only to come back home and get sick from toxic exposure. And when many of these veterans applied to the VA for health care benefits, they oftentimes discovered that they didn't qualify. It's a confounding indignity for our nation's heroes to sacrifice everything for our country only to come home, get sick, and discover that the VA ain't there for them. They have to fend for themselves. What kind of message does it send to future veterans when we can't guarantee they'll get health care benefits they rightfully deserve? That when the VA will not deal with injuries occurred on the battlefield because of toxic burn pits and other issues. So, with the PACT Act, we have a chance to answer that question with a resounding yes. Question, well, if I enlist, am I going to really be taken care of when my service is complete? We can answer that question and have a chance to answer that question with a resounding yes. Yes, we will take care of you. Yes, we will make sure you can live healthy and dignified lives. Yes, we will keep our promise to protect our veterans just as they sacrificed everything for us. No great nation can dare afford to turn its back on the multitudes who have served our country. No veteran should ever have to carry the burden of treating complications from toxic exposures all by themselves. And we can change that vote. We can change that simply with a vote on this bill. Let us pass the PACT Act with all due haste. We have a moral obligation in the chamber to get this done. Now, on the nominations front, we're moving ahead with confirming President Biden's critical and well-qualified nominees. Later today, we'll vote on confirmation of Alan Leventhal to serve as U.S. Ambassador to Denmark. Later this week, once we conclude the PACT Act, we'll also move forward on the nomination of Mary Boyle, Consumer Product Safety Commission. We will also, whose confirmation would give that agency a Democratic majority. We will also soon vote to confirm another historic judicial nominee, Anna Isabel de Alba, to serve as the district judge for the Eastern District of California. Judge de Alba would be the first ever Latina to serve as a federal judge in California's Eastern District, joining with more than 65 qualified judicial nominees that this majority has confirmed under President Biden. I'm proud of the historic progress the Senate Democratic majority has made in confirming well-qualified and diverse nominees to the executive branch, to independent boards, and to the federal bench. And we're going to keep going. On gun safety, Democrats and Republicans continue negotiations over the legislative text for the first major gun safety bill to pass the Senate in 30 years. Just a few weeks ago, such an effort would seem unimaginable, as if there were any issue that encapsulates the gridlock of the past few decades. Gun safety would be near the very top of the list. For too long, Americans have gotten used to a frustrating pattern. Tragedies strike, families grieve, but gridlock in the Senate ensues. Perhaps this time, hopefully this time, it will be different. Many in this chamber are working right now in hopes that it will be different. We're not over the finish line yet, but there's a real hunger to finally accomplish what has escaped the Senate for far too long: pass meaningful gun safety reform. Again, not too long ago, this debate would be hard to fathom, but despite the long odds, we gave negotiators space to do their work, and I'm glad we did, because we now have the best chance in decades to act on gun violence. I spoke to both Senators Murphy and Cornyn this morning. They are eager to get a text completed. There'll be meetings all day long in hopes that we can get the text done so we can put it on the floor as soon as possible and get it passed. If we can prevent even one death from gun violence in the future, our efforts in this moment will have been worth it. Gun safety is near and dear to my heart, as you know, Mr. President. 3 decades ago, I was the proud author of the Brady Bill in Congress, which won the support of many Republicans and even law enforcement. Back then, I argued we had to get something done because the American people were sick and tired of the insanity and inaction of gun violence, much as they are today. After years of trying, we succeeded back then. It wasn't on the first try in enacting a bill that very likely saved tens of thousands of lives. There are many, many people, thousands, tens of thousands in all likelihood, walking the streets today because we passed the Brady Law. Today, the American people are similarly sick and tired of the insanity of gun violence happening every day across the country. Just thinking about all the shootings we've suffered over the years is exhausting and debilitating. Columbine, Virginia, Sandy Hook, Parkland, Las Vegas, Orlando, El Paso, Charleston, Atlanta, Buffalo, Uvalde. The list keeps going on and growing. The American people have had enough. They want us to move forward. If the Senate can come up with a bill that embraces the bipartisan framework, we're going to save lives. I've promised that once the text is done, I will put it on the floor as soon as possible, so I encourage my colleagues to keep working. And as I mentioned, our senators on both sides of the aisle are working diligently all day to try and come up with a final text as soon as possible. We don't know the next time we'll have a chance to make meaningful progress on gun violence, so we have every reason in the world to get to yes. And now on the elections last night and election deniers. A year and a half after the 2020 election, Donald Trump's big lie is alive and well, unfortunately. Last night, hard right candidates who believe the last presidential election was stolen, so incorrect, with no factual basis. But these people with these beliefs were elevated into the general election. Many of these candidates are running in critical swing states and running for office that will have outsized influence in managing future elections. The example of Nevada's Secretary of State race is especially bone-chilling. Jim Marchant, a far-right radical who openly believes that the 2020 election results were illegitimate. He believes the big lie, and he's now running to be the top elections official in Nevada. Mr. Marchant is someone who openly thinks Donald Trump should be president right now. And if he wins in November, he'll be Nevada's most important election official and would pose a direct threat to the democratic process in that state. He must be rejected by the people of every political persuasion. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, a liberal, or a conservative, or a moderate. Democracy is at risk if we elevate individuals who don't believe in the sanctity of elections. That is the road to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. This isn't a partisan argument. Undermining democracy endangers all of us, Democrats, Republicans, independents. If the proponents of the big lie are elected to office, they pose a direct threat to our democratic way of life. The January 6th hearings have made abundantly clear that even Donald Trump's inner circle knew the big lie was utter garbage. So it's nothing short of horrifying to see that radicals who profess the big lie are gaining strength across the country. I urge the American people to reject the credo of lies pushed by Donald Trump and his cronies. And whatever your party, to vote this November for men and women who will safeguard our democracy and preserve the sanctity of our elections. Without it, our country could be on the road to ruin. I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.